The photograph went viral at 3 a.m. A rain-soaked mechanic in coveralls standing beside a woman in a designer coat that cost more than his entire year's rent. By morning, Logan Hayes woke to 17 missed calls, angry messages calling him a gold digger, and his 8-year-old daughter asking why strangers on the internet were saying mean things about Daddy. He didn't even know the woman's real name. Elena Vale had smiled, paid cash for the tow, and disappeared into the storm. He'd helped a stranger. Now the whole city thought he was dating a billionaire heiress he'd never see again. Except she was standing in his garage right now, looking terrified. Please stay with me until the end of this story. And drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled. Logan Hayes learned to fix broken things when he was 7 years old. His father taught him that engines made sense when people didn't, that carburetors didn't lie, transmissions didn't cheat, and brake lines never promised something they couldn't deliver. 25 years later, standing in the garage that barely kept the lights on, Logan understood his father had been wrong about one thing. Sometimes broken things couldn't be fixed. Sometimes they just stayed broken. The rain hit Seattle like it had a personal grudge that Tuesday evening. The kind of rain that didn't fall so much as a tack, turning 4th Avenue into a river and the sky into something close to anger. Logan was supposed to close at 6. It was almost 8, and he was elbow deep in a transmission that had no business still functioning, trying to coax another few months out of metal that should have given up years ago. He understood the feeling. Daddy, I'm hungry. Sophie sat on the rolling stool near the workbench, her legs swinging, her blonde hair pulled into a messy ponytail that Logan had attempted that morning with the kind of determination that got him exactly nowhere. She was 8. She was patient. She was also hungry, and Logan was a father who'd promised her spaghetti an hour ago. 10 more minutes, sweetheart. You said that 20 minutes ago. Did I? Yes. Logan wiped his hands on a rag that was more grease than cloth and looked at his daughter. She had her mother's eyes, green, sharp, the kind that saw through excuses even when she was too kind to call him on them. Sarah had been gone for 3 years, and some days Logan still reached for her side of the bed before remembering it was empty. You're right, he said. I did. Let me clean up. That's when the headlights cut through the rain. A car pulled up outside. Sleek, low, expensive in a way that didn't belong anywhere near Logan's garage. The kind of car people drove when they wanted everyone to know they had money and didn't particularly care if you resented them for it. The engine sputtered once, twice, then died completely. Logan frowned. Stay here. Is that a Maserati? How do you even know what a Maserati is? I watch TV. You watch too much TV. Sophie grinned. You let me. She wasn't wrong about that either. Logan stepped outside into the rain, which immediately soaked through his coveralls like it had been personally offended he'd tried to stay dry. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. She was maybe late 20s, dark hair plastered to her face, wearing a coat that probably cost more than Logan's mortgage. She looked at the car, then at Logan, then back at the car like she was trying to solve a complicated math problem and failing. It just stopped, she said. Cars do that. I didn't do anything. That's usually when they stop. She blinked at him, rain dripping down her face. For a moment, Logan thought she might get angry. Rich people usually did when you pointed out the obvious. But instead, she laughed, actually laughed. The sound was unexpected, bright and real in a way that didn't match the expensive car or the designer coat. I deserved that, she said. Can you fix it? Logan walked around the car, already knowing what he'd find. Maserati Ghibli. 3, maybe 4 years old. Probably hadn't been serviced properly in at least 2 of those years, because people who bought cars like this rarely understood they needed maintenance just like everything else. I can look at it, he said, but not tonight. I've got a kid who hasn't eaten dinner yet. The woman glanced past him into the garage, where Sophie was very obviously pretending not to stare while absolutely staring. Right, of course. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You need a tow? Yes, probably. There's a service about 6 blocks down. Hayes Auto Repair. That's me. They can bring it by tomorrow morning if you want. She looked at him like he'd just offered her something she hadn't expected. You're not going to try to fix it right now? Charge me extra for the emergency? Lady, I don't know you well enough to rip you off yet. Give me until tomorrow for that. Another laugh, smaller this time. What's your name? Logan Hayes. Elena. She didn't offer a last name. Logan didn't ask. People had their reasons for privacy, and he'd learned a long time ago that other people's business was exactly that. Other people's business. Nice to meet you, Elena. You got someone who can pick you up? I'll call a car. In this rain, you'll be waiting an hour. I'll manage. Logan should have left it there, should have gone back inside, made Sophie her spaghetti, and forgotten about the woman with the broken Maserati and the kind of smile that looked like it didn't get used often enough. But Sophie was watching through the window, and Sarah had always said Logan's problem was he couldn't walk past someone who needed help, even when helping them made his own life harder. I can give you a ride, he heard himself say. After I feed my kid. If you don't mind waiting 20 minutes. Elena looked at him carefully. You don't know me. You don't know me either. That makes us even. I could be dangerous. You're soaking wet and stranded in the rain. I'll take my chances. For a long moment she didn't answer, just stood there in the downpour, studying him like she was trying to figure out if he was real or some kind of elaborate trick. Finally, she nodded. Okay, thank you. Come inside before you drown. The garage wasn't much, fluorescent lights that flickered, concrete floors stained with decades of oil, the smell of metal and grease and hard work that never quite paid enough. But it was warm, and it was dry, and Sophie immediately hopped off her stool with the kind of fearless curiosity that made Logan's heart stop at least twice a day. Hi, I'm Sophie. Are you rich? Sophie, it's okay. Elena smiled, crouching down to Sophie's level without seeming to care about the expensive coat touching the dirty floor. I'm Elena, and I'm comfortable. That's what rich people say when they don't want to say they're rich. You're absolutely right, Sophie beamed, delighted to have her theory confirmed. Your car is really pretty, even though it's broken. Thank you. I'm pretty sure that's the nicest thing anyone said about it. Logan cleared his throat. Sophie, give the lady some space. Go wash your hands. We're making spaghetti. Can Elena stay for dinner? Sophie, I don't want to impose, Elena said quickly, but there was something in her voice, something that sounded like loneliness wearing expensive clothes. Logan looked at her, really looked, saw the way she held herself, careful, guarded, like someone who'd learned not to trust easy kindness. Saw the coat that cost a fortune, but somehow seemed wrong on her, like she was wearing someone else's idea of who she should be. It's just spaghetti, he said. And Sophie makes terrible garlic bread, but she'll be offended if you don't eat it. It's not terrible, Sophie protested. Last time you used sugar instead of salt. That was one time. Elena laughed again, and Logan realized he liked the sound more than he probably should. I would love to stay for dinner. 30 minutes later, they were sitting in the cramped office that doubled as a break room, eating spaghetti off paper plates because Logan had forgotten to run the dishwasher, and Sophie had very strong opinions about using the fancy dishes for company. Elena ate like someone who hadn't had a home-cooked meal in months, and Sophie talked enough for all three of them combined. Daddy's really good at fixing cars, Sophie announced, but he's bad at breakfast. I make breakfast. You make cereal. That's not breakfast. That's just opening a box. Cereal is a perfectly acceptable breakfast. Mom used to make pancakes. The silence that followed was the kind that had weight to it. Elena glanced at Logan, understanding crossing her face without him having to explain anything. I bet your dad makes other things really well, though, Elena said gently. He makes good spaghetti, and he tells good bedtime stories, and he fixed my bike even though he said it was impossible to fix. Nothing's impossible, Logan said. Just expensive. Was my bike expensive? Your bike was priceless because you're priceless. Eat your bread. Sophie bit into her garlic bread, which was in fact terrible, and made a face. I think I used sugar again. I think you did too. Why didn't you stop me? Because you need to learn that mistakes are how we figure things out. That's a dad way of saying you weren't paying attention. Elena nearly choked on her water. Logan just shook his head, fighting a smile. You're too smart for 8 years old. Mom said that too. Another silence, but this one was softer. Sophie seemed to realize what she'd said and looked down at her plate. Logan reached over and squeezed her hand once. She squeezed back. They'd gotten good at this. The silent communication that meant I miss her too, and we're okay, and I love you all at once. Elena watched them both with something in her expression Logan couldn't quite name. Not pity, something else. Something that looked almost like longing. After dinner, Logan drove Elena home. Sophie fell asleep in the back seat within 5 minutes, her head resting against the window. Elena gave him an address in Queen Anne, the kind of neighborhood where Logan's truck looked like it had gotten lost on the way to somewhere it actually belonged. "You can just drop me at the corner," Elena said. "I can drop you at your door. It's not necessary." "Neither was dinner, but you stayed anyway." She smiled at that. Fair point. The building was exactly what Logan expected. Glass and steel and the kind of modern architecture that looked expensive because it was. A doorman stood under the awning, eyeing Logan's truck with the kind of polite disdain that probably came with the uniform. Elena unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't get out. "Thank you for the ride, and the dinner, and fixing my car." "Haven't fixed it yet." "But you will." "Probably." "You don't sound very confident." "I'm confident I can fix it. I'm not confident you maintained it properly." She laughed. "I definitely didn't." "Then we'll see what we're working with tomorrow." Elena reached for the door handle, then stopped. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you help me? You didn't know me. I could have been anyone." Logan thought about that. About Sarah, who'd helped every person she met even when it inconvenienced her. About Sophie, who'd inherited her mother's heart and hadn't learned to be scared of strangers yet. About himself, trying to raise a daughter to believe the world was still good, even when most days it felt like evidence to the contrary. "My wife used to say that kindness doesn't cost anything," he said, finally. She was wrong about that. It costs time. Sometimes money, sometimes more than that. But she was right that it's still worth it. Elena looked at him for a long moment. "She sounds like she was a good person. The best. I'm sorry you lost her." "Me too." Elena nodded slowly, then opened the door. "Good night, Logan. Tell Sophie I thought her garlic bread was perfect." "I'm not lying to my kid." "Then tell her I thought it was perfectly terrible, and I loved it anyway." She got out before Logan could respond, walking toward the building without looking back. The doorman opened the door for her with a practiced smile, and she disappeared inside like she'd never been sitting in Logan's truck at all. Logan sat there for a moment longer, watching the building, wondering why he felt like something had just shifted in his life without his permission. Then Sophie stirred in the back seat, mumbling something about pancakes, and Logan put the truck in gear and drove them home. He didn't think about Elena again until the next morning when he arrived at the garage and found her Maserati already there, delivered by the tow service. He also found something else. His phone had 37 missed calls. His email had over 100 new messages. And when he opened Google, the first result was a photograph of himself and Elena standing in the rain outside his garage, her hand on his arm, both of them smiling. The headline read, "Billionaire heiress Elena Vale spotted with mystery mechanic. New romance?" Logan stared at his phone. Read the headline again. Then a third time, because surely he'd misunderstood. Billionaire heiress Elena Vale. The Elena Vale, daughter of Marcus Vale, who owned half of Seattle's real estate and the other half's politicians. The woman whose face was on the society pages every other week, always photographed at galas and charity events and expensive restaurants where the waiters probably earned more than Logan made in a month. That Elena Vale had eaten terrible spaghetti in his garage last night and told his daughter her sugar-covered garlic bread was perfect. Logan's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered it without thinking. "Mr. Hayes, this is Jennifer Chen from Seattle Metropolitan Magazine. We'd love to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Elena Vale." He hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. He didn't answer. By noon, there were 3 news vans parked outside his garage. By 2 p.m., his Yelp page had been flooded with 1-star reviews calling him a gold digger and 5-star reviews calling him a hero. By 3 p.m., someone had created a Twitter hashtag Mechanic and the Heiress. Logan ignored all of it and focused on Elena's car. The problem was exactly what he'd suspected. Neglected maintenance, worn belt, and a sensor that had given up months ago but no one had bothered to replace. 3 hours of work, maybe $400 in parts. He was finishing up when the garage door opened and Elena walked in. She wasn't wearing the expensive coat today, just jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked younger, more real, also completely mortified. I am so sorry, she said. Logan wiped his hands on a rag. For all of this, the reporters, the phone calls, I didn't know anyone was taking pictures. You didn't think someone would photograph the two of us standing outside a garage in the rain? I didn't think anyone would care. They care because you're you, billionaire heiress. He said it without judgment, just stating a fact. Elena flinched anyway. I should have told you. Why? So you'd know what you were getting into, so you could have said no. Would you have wanted me to say no? She looked at him, something vulnerable in her expression. No. Then we're fine. Logan, there are news vans outside your business. People are writing terrible things about you online. None of this is fine. He shrugged. I've been called worse, and the extra attention will probably be good for business. You're not angry? I'm confused, Logan admitted. About why someone like you was driving around alone with a broken car instead of having someone else deal with it. But angry? No. Elena let out a breath, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. I like driving alone. I like being alone. When people know who you are, you don't get a lot of alone time. Everyone wants something. Everyone's performing. I just wanted one night where I could be normal. How'd that work out? I met someone who treated me like a person instead of a bank account. So pretty well, actually. Until the internet ruined it. Logan picked up a wrench, turned it over in his hands. Your car's fixed. That's it? That's all you're going to say? What do you want me to say? I don't know. Something about how this is too complicated. How you don't need this drama in your life. How I should pay you and leave, and we should both forget this happened. Is that what you want? No, she said quietly. But it's probably what should happen. Logan set down the wrench and looked at her directly. My daughter liked you. Sophie doesn't like many people. She's 8 and she's already figured out most adults are full of shit. But she liked you. So unless you're planning to hurt her, I don't particularly care what the internet thinks about us having dinner. It wasn't just dinner to them. It was to us. That's what matters. Elena stared at him like he'd just said something in a foreign language she was trying to translate. Do you have any idea how many people are going to come after you now? How many reporters will dig through your life looking for dirt? How many of my father's associates will try to pay you to go away? Are you trying to scare me off? I'm trying to be realistic. Then realistically, I fixed your car. You owe me $400 and some change. You can pay me and leave if that's what you want. Or you can pay me and come back for dinner tomorrow because Sophie asked if you were coming back and I told her I didn't know. You want me to come back? I want my kid to stop asking me questions I don't have answers to. She wants to know if you're coming back, so I'm asking, are you? Elena stood there in his garage, surrounded by the smell of oil and metal, wearing clothes that probably cost less than anything in her closet, but somehow looked more right on her than that expensive coat had. She looked at Logan like she was trying to decide if he was real or if she'd imagined him. Yes, she said finally. I'm coming back. Good. 6 o'clock. Don't be late. What should I bring? Yourself. And maybe something that isn't garlic bread because Sophie's going to insist on cooking again, and I cannot survive another sweet disaster. Elena laughed, and Logan realized he'd started looking forward to that sound. She paid him in cash. Exact change, like she'd calculated it beforehand, and took her keys. She was halfway to the door when she turned back. Logan? Yeah? Thank you for treating me like Elena instead of Elena Vale. Who's Elena Vale? She smiled. Exactly. After she left, Logan stood in his garage and stared at her car's space, already empty. His phone buzzed with another unknown number. He ignored it. Tomorrow, the reporters would still be there. Tomorrow, the internet would still have opinions about his life. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. But tonight, he had to figure out what to make for dinner when Elena came back. And he had to explain to Sophie that, yes, the pretty lady was coming back, and no, she absolutely could not make garlic bread again. Some problems were harder to solve than others. Outside, the Seattle rain kept falling, and somewhere across the city, Elena Vale drove her newly fixed car through streets that had never looked at her the way Logan Hayes did, like she was just a person who needed help instead of a fortune wrapped in human skin. Neither of them knew it yet, But that photograph was just the beginning. Elena showed up at exactly 6 o'clock the next evening carrying a bakery box and looking like she'd never been inside a bakery in her life. "I brought dessert," she said, holding it out like she wasn't sure what to do with it. "The woman at the shop said kids like chocolate cake." Sophie appeared beside Logan before he could respond, eyes wide. "Is that from Laurent's?" Yes? That place costs like $50 for a slice." "Sophie," Logan warned. "What? It does. Madison's mom got one for her birthday, and she wouldn't stop talking about it for a whole week." Elena looked genuinely distressed. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. Should I have gotten something else? I can go back." "It's perfect," Logan cut in, shooting Sophie a look that said, "Be nice or no cake for you." "Come in. Sophie's been cooking since she got home from school." "I made lasagna," Sophie announced proudly. "From scratch. Well, mostly from scratch. Dad helped with the oven part because last time I almost burned the kitchen down." "That's not quite how it happened." "That's exactly how it happened. You told Grandma you were never letting me near the stove again." Elena followed them inside, and Logan watched her take in the small house with its mismatched furniture and walls that needed repainting and the pile of Sophie's homework on the coffee table. She didn't look uncomfortable exactly, but she looked careful, like she was trying to figure out the rules of a game no one had explained. Dinner was chaotic in the way it always was with Sophie involved. The lasagna was actually good, which surprised all three of them. Sophie talked nonstop about her day at school, about her best friend Madison, who was mad at her for reasons Sophie couldn't explain, about her teacher Mr. Rodriguez, who gave too much homework but also told funny jokes, about the art project she was working on that was supposed to be a self-portrait but looked more like an angry potato. Elena listened to all of it with the kind of attention that seemed rare in adults. She asked questions, real questions, not the polite, meaningless ones people asked when they were just waiting for their turn to talk. And when Sophie showed her the angry potato painting, Elena studied it seriously. "I think it's brilliant," Elena said. "You're just saying that." "I'm not. I went to art school for 2 years. This has real emotion. That's harder to create than you think." Sophie's face lit up. "You went to art school?" "Before I decided it wasn't for me." "Why wasn't it for me?" Elena glanced at Logan, then back to Sophie. "Because my father thought I should do something more practical, and I was too scared to tell him he was wrong." "That's dumb." "Sophie, no, she's right," Elena said. "It was dumb. I should have been braver." Sophie considered this with the seriousness only an 8-year-old could muster. "My mom always said it's never too late to be brave." The words hung in the air. Logan felt the familiar ache in his chest, the one that showed up whenever Sophie mentioned Sarah, which was less often now than it used to be, but still often enough to hurt. Elena's expression softened. "Your mom sounds like she was very wise." "She was. Dad says I got her brains and his stubbornness, which is a terrible combination." "Your dad's not wrong." They ate the impossibly expensive chocolate cake, which tasted like it cost $50 a slice because it was that good. Sophie had 2 pieces and then fell asleep on the couch halfway through a movie she'd insisted they all watch. Logan carried her to bed, and when he came back, Elena was washing dishes. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I know, but I want to." Logan picked up a towel and started drying. They worked in silence for a while, the kind that felt comfortable instead of awkward. Outside, the rain had started again, tapping against the windows like it was asking to be let in. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said finally. "Sure." "Why aren't you freaking out about all this? The reporters, the attention, all of it. Most people would have told me to leave and never come back." Logan dried a plate, set it carefully in the cabinet. "Most people probably would have. But you didn't." "No." "Why?" He thought about how to answer that. About Sarah, who taught him that running from complicated things didn't make them less complicated. About Sophie, who needed to see her father choose kindness even when it was inconvenient. About himself, who'd spent 3 years being careful and safe and scared of anything that might hurt as much as losing Sarah had hurt. "Because I'm tired of being afraid," he said simply. Elena stopped washing, her hands still in the soapy water. "Of what?" "Everything. Anything. Take your pick." He set down the towel. "After Sarah died, I stopped taking risks. Stopped trying new things, stopped letting people in because it was easier than potentially losing them. I told myself I was being responsible, being a good father, but really, I was just scared. That's not a bad thing. Being scared is normal. It's normal. It's also exhausting. And it's not what I want Sophie to learn from me. What do you want her to learn? That good things are worth the risk, that the world isn't just dangerous and painful, that sometimes a stranger shows up in the rain, and maybe that's the beginning of something good instead of something terrible. Elena pulled her hands from the water, dried them on a towel. What if it turns out to be terrible anyway? Then at least I tried. At least I didn't spend the rest of my life wondering what if. She looked at him with something raw in her expression. You make it sound easy. It's not easy. It's terrifying, but so is the alternative. Elena sat down at the small kitchen table, and Logan joined her. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, the house was quiet, except for the sound of Sophie's ancient nightlight humming in the other room. My father called today, Elena said. He wanted to know who you were and what your intentions are, like I'm a teenager instead of 28 years old. What did you tell him? That it's none of his business. Then he threatened to have his lawyers investigate you. Logan felt his jaw tighten. Did you tell him not to? I told him if he did, I'd never speak to him again. She looked down at her hands. We don't have a great relationship. He thinks I'm wasting my life. I think he sold his soul a long time ago and doesn't remember what it feels like to be human. We're basically stuck. What about your mom? She died when I was 16. Cancer. After that, it was just me and him, and a house that was too big and too quiet and full of people who worked for us but didn't really know us. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything. She said it without bitterness, just stating a fact. I spent years trying to make him proud. Went to the right schools, dated the right people, showed up at the right events. And none of it mattered because I was never what he wanted me to be. What did he want? A son. Someone to take over the company. Someone ruthless and ambitious and willing to do whatever it takes to win. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Instead, he got me. An art student who can't stand boardrooms and thinks most of his business deals are morally bankrupt. Are they? Yes. But no one wants to hear that from the billionaire's daughter. They just want me to smile and look pretty and not ask uncomfortable questions. Logan leaned back in his chair. So you hid, drove around alone, fixed your own car problems instead of calling someone to do it for you. I wanted one night where I wasn't Elena Vale, where I was just Elena, someone normal. You are normal. I'm really not. You ate Sophie's terrible garlic bread and told her it was good. You washed dishes without being asked. You cared that the cake cost too much. That's pretty normal to me. Elena smiled, small and sad. You barely know me. I know enough. What if you don't like what you find out? What if I do? She looked at him across the small kitchen table, and Logan saw the loneliness there. Not the glamorous kind that movies made look romantic. The real kind. The kind that carved you out from the inside and left you wondering if anyone would ever see the actual person instead of the money or the name or the last name that opened doors you never asked to walk through. I'm a mess, Logan, she said quietly. My life is complicated and my father is vindictive, and the people in his world will come after you just because I like you. They'll dig through your past and your finances, and they'll find every mistake you've ever made and put it on the internet for everyone to see. I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm not worried about people knowing that. You should be. Why? Because I'll look bad? I'm a widower mechanic raising a kid alone in a garage that barely breaks even. I'm already not impressive by your world standards. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant. But here's the thing, Elena. I don't care about your world. I don't care about your father's opinion or what some socialite thinks about me at whatever gala they're attending. I care about my daughter. I care about keeping the lights on and making sure Sophie feels safe and loved. And yeah, I care about you, because you're the first person in 3 years who made me laugh without it feeling like I was betraying Sarah's memory. Elena's eyes were bright, and Logan realized she was trying not to cry. Sorry, he said. That was probably too honest. No, it was perfect. She wiped her eyes quickly. I'm just not used to people being honest with me. What are they usually? Polite? Strategic? Everyone wants something. Everyone's calculating how knowing me can benefit them. You're the first person in years who's treated me like I'm just a person who happened to need help with her car. That's all you were. That's all I want to be. They sat there in the quiet kitchen while the rain drummed against the roof, and somewhere in Seattle, reporters were probably writing stories about them that had nothing to do with reality. Logan thought about reaching across the table, taking her hand. Didn't do it because it felt too soon, too fast, too much like crossing a line he wasn't sure existed. Elena stood up. I should go. It's late. I'll drive you. You don't have to. Elena, it's raining. I'm driving you. She smiled. Okay. They were quiet on the drive to Queen Anne. The city looked different at night, softer somehow, despite the rain. Logan's truck made a grinding noise that meant he needed to look at the transmission soon, but kept putting off because fixing other people's cars paid more than fixing his own. He pulled up outside her building, and Elena didn't immediately get out. Thank you for dinner, she said. Thank you for the cake. Sophie's great. You're doing a good job with her. Most days I'm just guessing and hoping I don't screw up too badly. I think that's what all parents do. The good ones, anyway. Logan looked at her profile, backlit by the building's lights. Are you going to be okay? With your father, I mean. I've been not okay with my father for 12 years. I'm used to it. That's not the same as being okay. No, she admitted. It's not. She reached for the door handle, then stopped, turned back to him. And before Logan could process what was happening, she leaned across the console and kissed him. Quick, soft, barely more than a brush of lips against his. Then she pulled back, looking startled like she'd surprised herself. Sorry, she said. I shouldn't have. Logan kissed her back. Slower this time, his hand coming up to cup her face. She made a small sound of surprise that turned into something else. Something that made his chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with hope. When they broke apart, Elena was breathing hard. Okay, she said. Okay? That was okay. Better than okay, that was... Yeah, she laughed, a little breathless. I really should go before I do something else impulsive. Would that be so bad? Yes? Maybe. I don't know. She opened the door, got out, then leaned back in. Can I see you again? You know where I live. Is tomorrow too soon? Tomorrow Sophie has soccer practice. Day after? Day after is perfect. She closed the door and walked toward her building, and Logan sat there like an idiot, watching her go. The doorman held the door for her with that same polite disdain, and Elena disappeared inside. Logan touched his lips, still feeling the ghost of that kiss, wondering what the hell he'd just gotten himself into. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Elena. Sophie made me put my number in your phone when you weren't looking. She said you're bad at asking for numbers and someone needed to help you. Logan laughed out loud. Texted back. She's not wrong. Good night, Logan. Good night, Elena. He drove home through the rain, and for the first time in 3 years, the empty passenger seat didn't feel quite so empty. The next 3 weeks happened fast. Too fast, probably, but Logan had stopped trying to slow things down and started just living them. Elena came to dinner 4 times a week. She taught Sophie how to paint, actual painting, not the angry potato variety, and the garage slowly filled with canvases covered in colors that made the dingy space feel almost alive. She helped with homework, argued with Logan about proper oil change intervals, and once made breakfast that was so catastrophically bad they ended up ordering pizza at 9 in the morning. Sophie was in love with her. Logan was trying very hard not to be, but failing spectacularly. The media attention died down, then spiked again when someone photographed them at Sophie's soccer game. Died down again when nothing scandalous happened. Spiked a 3rd time when Elena showed up at the garage covered in paint, and someone decided that was proof they were living together. They weren't, but Logan was starting to wish they were, which terrified him. You're thinking too loud, Elena said. They were sitting on the floor of the garage after closing, surrounded by Sophie's paintings. Sophie herself was at a sleepover at Madison's house. The fight had been resolved with the kind of 8-year-old logic that made no sense to adults, but perfect sense to them. And Logan and Elena had the whole evening alone for the first time since this started. Sorry. What are you thinking about? How fast this is happening? Do you want it to slow down? Logan looked at her. Paint in her hair, wearing one of his old flannel shirts because she'd gotten cold and he'd given it to her without thinking, looking more at home in his garage than she probably ever looked in that expensive apartment. "No," he admitted, "but I'm scared it's too fast, that we're going to crash." "We might?" "That doesn't scare you?" "It terrifies me, but I'd rather crash trying than never try at all." She was using his own words against him. Logan smiled despite himself. "That's not fair. Life's not fair. You taught me that." "I did not teach you that. You absolutely did. The first thing you ever said to me was, 'Cars stop when you don't do anything.' That's basically a metaphor for life." "That was not a metaphor. That was me being a smartass." Elena laughed, shifting closer to him. "You're good at that too." "At what?" "Being a smartass. Being honest. Being real." She paused. "Being yourself without apologizing for it." "I'm just a mechanic, Elena." "You're not just anything." She said it fiercely, like she needed him to believe it. "You're a good father, a good person. You see people, actually see them. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Logan didn't know what to say to that, didn't know how to explain that he saw her because she was impossible not to see, that Elena without the designer clothes and expensive car was more vivid and real than anyone he'd met since Sarah died. So instead of saying anything, he kissed her. She kissed him back, and it was different from that first kiss in his truck. Slower, deeper. The kind of kiss that felt like a promise instead of a question. They ended up tangled together on the garage floor, Logan's hand in her hair, her fingers gripping his shirt like she was afraid he might disappear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena pressed her forehead against his. "I'm falling for you," she whispered. "I know it's fast and I know it's complicated and I know I should probably slow down, but I can't. I tried, and I can't." Logan's heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could feel it. "Elena, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." "I'm falling for you too," he said. "Have been since you ate Sophie's terrible garlic bread and pretended it was good." She laughed, the sound muffled against his shoulder. "It was terrible. The worst. But I meant it when I said I loved it anyway." They stayed there on the floor, wrapped up in each other while Seattle existed outside without them. Logan thought about Sarah, about how she'd want him to be happy, about how loving someone new didn't erase loving someone who was gone, about how maybe he was allowed to have this without feeling guilty. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. "You should check that," Elena said. Logan grabbed his phone, expecting a text from Sophie's friend's mom about pickup time. Instead, it was an unknown number. "You should ask your girlfriend about the money." He frowned. "What the hell?" "What is it?" He showed her the phone. Elena's face went pale. "What money?" Logan asked. "I don't know. I haven't given you money." His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a link to an article. The headline read, "Elena Vale secretly funding mechanics business, charity or romance." Logan clicked it, felt his stomach drop as he read. The article claimed Elena had anonymously paid off several of the garage's outstanding debts, that she'd arranged for donations from various wealthy clients, that Logan's recent increase in business wasn't organic growth, but carefully orchestrated charity from a billionaire trying to help her poor boyfriend. "Is this true?" Logan asked quietly. "No, I swear I didn't." "Elena, is it true?" She looked at him, and he saw the answer in her eyes before she said anything. "I paid off one debt," she said. "Just one. You were 3 months behind on the building lease, and I knew you were stressed about it, and I just wanted to help." Logan stood up. "You had no right." "I know, but do you have any idea how that makes me look? How that makes me feel?" "I wasn't trying to make you look like anything. I was trying to help." "I didn't ask for help." "You're too stubborn to ask for help. You were going to lose the garage." "Then I would have lost the garage. That was my problem to solve, not yours." Elena stood too, her eyes bright with tears. "I'm sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing." "The right thing would have been talking to me, treating me like a partner instead of a charity case." "That's not what I was doing." "Yes, it was. You threw money at a problem because that's what people like you do. You fix things with money because you don't know how to fix them any other way." The words came out harsher than Logan meant them, and he watched Elena flinch like he'd hit her. People like me, she repeated quietly. Elena, no, you're right. I'm just a rich girl who doesn't understand real problems, who tries to buy solutions because I'm too stupid or too privileged to know better. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She grabbed her jacket, headed for the door. Logan caught her arm. Wait, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Let go of me. Elena, please. Aha! She yanked her arm free, and Logan saw something break in her expression. You want to know why I paid that debt? Because I watched you work yourself to exhaustion every single day. Because Sophie told me you weren't sleeping because you were worried about money. Because I thought if I could fix one thing, just one thing, maybe you'd have a little less weight on your shoulders. But you're right. I had no right. I'm just the rich girl playing it normal, and I should have stayed in my own world where I belong. That's not what I meant. But she was already gone, the door slamming behind her. Logan stood alone in his garage, surrounded by Sophie's paintings and the ghost of Elena's paint-stained flannel shirt still lying on the floor where she'd left it. His phone kept buzzing with notifications, text messages, news alerts, people who wanted his comment or his story or just wanted to tell him what they thought of him. He threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, screen cracked but still buzzing. Outside, the rain started again. It always did in Seattle. Like the sky couldn't help itself. Logan picked Sophie up from Madison's house at noon the next day, and the first thing she said when she got in the truck was, "Where's Elena?" "Home." "Why didn't she come with you?" "Because she's busy." Sophie studied him with those two observant green eyes. "You had a fight. We had a disagreement." "That's adult talk for fight. What happened?" Logan focused on the road, his hands tight on the steering wheel. "It's complicated." "You always say that when you don't want to explain." "Because it's always true." Sophie was quiet for a moment, kicking her feet against the seat. "Madison's parents fight all the time. Her mom throws plates. Does Elena throw plates?" "No one threw plates." "Then it can't be that bad." If only it were that simple. Logan had spent the entire night replaying the argument in his head, trying to figure out where it went wrong. Elena had been trying to help. He knew that. But she'd gone behind his back, made decisions about his life without asking, and worst of all, she'd made him look like exactly what everyone already thought he was. A broke mechanic being funded by his rich girlfriend. His phone had 17 voicemails from reporters asking for comment. His email had triple that. Someone had already written an opinion piece about how Elena Vale was slumming it with working-class men as some kind of social experiment. Another article speculated that Logan was manipulating her for money. A third suggested the whole relationship was staged for publicity. All of it was garbage. None of it was true. But the debt Elena had paid was real, and that made everything else feel poisoned. "Are you going to fix it?" Sophie asked. "Fix what?" "The fight. With Elena." "I don't know if I can." "Yes, you can. You fix everything." "Not everything, sweetheart." Sophie frowned. "But you have to fix this. Elena makes you happy. You smile more when she's around. You haven't smiled that much since Mom died." Logan's chest tightened. "Sophie, I know you miss Mom. I miss her too. But Mom would want you to be happy. She told me that before she died. She said no matter what happens, I should make sure you don't forget how to smile." The truck swerved slightly as Logan blinked against the sudden burning in his eyes. He pulled over to the side of the road, put the truck in park, and turned to look at his daughter. "When did she tell you that?" "The last time I saw her at the hospital. You went to get coffee and she told me she was really tired and might not wake up. She said I needed to take care of you because you were going to be sad for a long time, and I had to remind you that it's okay to be happy again." Logan pulled Sophie into a hug, and she wrapped her small arms around his neck. She smelled like Madison's house, popcorn and fruity shampoo and sleepover chaos. "You did good, kid," he said quietly. "You did really good. So you'll fix it with Elena?" "I'll try." "Trying's good. That's what you always tell me." Logan drove them home, and Sophie immediately went to her room to work on homework she'd forgotten about until the last minute. Logan stood in the kitchen, staring at his cracked phone screen, trying to figure out what to say. "I'm sorry" felt too small. "I was wrong" felt incomplete. "I miss you" felt too honest. He typed out 6 different messages and deleted all of them. Finally, he just wrote, "Can we talk?" The response came 30 seconds later. "Not right now." Logan stared at those 3 words for a long time. Then he set the phone down and went to work on the transmission in his truck that he'd been putting off for 2 months. Sometimes the only way to deal with feelings was to bury your hands in metal and grease and pretend the world was as simple as replacing worn-out parts. 3 days passed. Elena didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up at the garage. Sophie asked about her twice a day, and Logan ran out of good excuses. The media moved on to some other scandal involving a tech CEO and his assistant. Logan's phone finally stopped buzzing. The garage stayed busy. Too busy, actually. Logan had more customers than he could handle, and at first he thought maybe the publicity had actually helped. Then he looked at the appointments and realized most of the new customers had addresses in Queen Anne, Laurelhurst, Madison Park, the expensive neighborhoods where Elena's people lived. He turned down half of them, told his receptionist to only book appointments from his usual area. The receptionist, a 60-year-old woman named Diane, who'd worked for Logan's father, raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. "You're being stubborn," she said. "I'm being practical." "You're being an idiot. These people have money. They pay on time. Some of them even tip. I don't want their charity." Diane gave him a look that could strip paint. "Boy, sometimes charity is just people being kind. You're so busy being proud you can't see the difference." Logan went back to work and pretended he hadn't heard her. On the 4th day, Marcus Vale showed up. Logan was under a Honda Civic when Diane knocked on the frame of the car. "You've got a visitor." "Tell them to wait." "I don't think he's the waiting type." Something in her voice made Logan roll out from under the car. Standing in the doorway of his garage was a man in a suit that probably cost more than Logan's truck. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that made it clear he was used to people jumping when he spoke. Behind him stood 2 men in dark suits who were definitely security and not trying to hide it. Logan stood up slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. "Mr. Vale." "Mr. Hayes." Marcus Vale stepped into the garage like he owned it, his expensive shoes somehow avoiding every oil stain on the concrete. "I thought it was time we had a conversation." "About what?" "About my daughter." Logan glanced at Diane, who was watching with unconcealed interest. "Can you give us a minute?" She left reluctantly, and Logan turned back to Marcus Vale. Up close, he could see where Elena got her eyes. The same green, but colder. Calculating instead of curious. "What about your daughter?" Marcus looked around the garage with the kind of expression people usually reserved for crime scenes. "This is where you work? This is where I work. And you support a child on what you make here?" "I support my child just fine." "I'm not criticizing. I'm trying to understand what Elena sees in all this." Logan felt his jaw tighten. "Maybe you should ask her." "I would, but she's not speaking to me." "Again. She seems to think I'm responsible for the recent media coverage of your relationship." "Are you?" Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Hayes, if I wanted to destroy you, you'd already be destroyed. This amateur hour coverage is beneath my capabilities." "Then who leaked the story about Elena paying my debts?" "Someone who wants to drive a wedge between you and my daughter. I have my suspicions, but no proof yet." Logan crossed his arms. "Why are you here?" "Because, despite what Elena thinks, I do care about her happiness. And for some inexplicable reason, you seem to make her happy." He said it like it confused him, which it probably did. "But I need to know if you're serious about her, or if this is just a fling that's going to end badly and leave her more damaged than she already is." "Elena's not damaged. She's been damaged since her mother died, and I failed to be the father she needed. I know my shortcomings, Mr. Hayes. I'm asking if you know yours." Logan thought about that night in the garage, about the things he'd said, about calling Elena "people like you" and watching her face crumble. "I screwed up," he admitted. "I said things I shouldn't have. I let my pride get in the way of seeing she was trying to help." "Pride is useful in business, less so in relationships." "Is this the part where you threaten to destroy me if I hurt your daughter?" Marcus almost smiled. "No. This is the part where I tell you that Elena has been hurt by enough people in her life. Her ex-boyfriend was a narcissistic trust fund child who used her to elevate his social status. Her college friends abandoned her when she walked away from my company. The few people she trusts can be counted on one hand. If you're going to be one of them, you need to be certain. Because if you're not, it would be kinder to end it now. Logan looked at the man who'd built an empire and apparently lost his daughter in the process. I'm certain. I'm just not sure she still wants me to be. Then I suggest you find out. Marcus pulled a card from his pocket and held it out. My personal number. Use it if you need anything. And Mr. Hayes, the debt Elena paid, consider it a loan from me instead. You can pay it back over time, whatever arrangement works for you. Logan took the card but didn't look at it. Why would you do that? Because my daughter cares about you, which means I need to care about you not failing. It's a purely selfish gesture dressed up as generosity. Don't read too much into it. Marcus Vale left the way he came, his security following, and Logan stood alone in his garage holding a business card and trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. That night, Logan drove to Elena's building. The doorman recognized him this time and didn't even ask before calling up to her apartment. Logan waited, expecting to be told she wasn't home or didn't want visitors. Instead, the doorman nodded toward the elevator. 23rd floor, unit 2307. Elena's apartment was exactly what Logan expected, and nothing like he'd imagined. Huge windows overlooking the city, modern furniture that looked uncomfortable, art on the walls that was probably worth more than Logan's house. But there were also things that were purely Elena, plants everywhere, most of them dying. Sketchbooks piled on the coffee table, paint stains on the hardwood floor that someone had tried and failed to clean. Elena stood in the middle of it wearing paint-covered jeans and an old sweatshirt, her hair pulled back, looking exhausted. Hi, Logan said. Hi. They stared at each other across the expensive apartment, and Logan realized he had no idea what to say. All the speeches he'd practiced on the drive over evaporated. Your dad came to see me, he said finally. Elena's eyes widened. He what? Showed up at the garage, wanted to make sure I was serious about you. That manipulative shh. She cut herself off, pressing her hands to her face. I'm sorry. I didn't know he was going to do that. It's okay. It was actually kind of nice, in a terrifying, intimidating, I could have you killed sort of way. Elena laughed despite herself, then stopped. What did you tell him? That I screwed up, that I said things I didn't mean because I was angry and proud and scared. Scared of what? Logan stepped further into the apartment. Of being the guy everyone thinks I am, the poor mechanic dating a rich woman for her money, of losing my independence, of letting someone take care of me because I'm tired of doing it alone. He paused. Of letting you in and then losing you the way I lost Sarah. Elena's expression softened. Logan, I know you were trying to help. I know you saw I was struggling and you wanted to fix it because that's who you are. You see broken things and you want to make them better. That doesn't make what I did right. No, but it doesn't make you wrong for trying. I should have told you I was struggling instead of pretending I had everything under control. I should have asked for help instead of being too stubborn to admit I needed it. I should have talked to you before paying that debt. I should have treated you like a partner instead of a problem to solve. Logan closed the distance between them. We both screwed up. Yeah. Can we stop screwing up? I don't know if I know how. Then we'll figure it out together. Elena looked up at him, and Logan saw hope fighting with fear in her expression. I missed you. I missed Sophie. I missed eating dinner in your kitchen and painting in the garage and pretending my life was simple for a few hours. Your life isn't simple. No. But you made it feel like it could be. Logan cupped her face in his hands. I don't want you to pretend. I don't want simple Elena or fake normal Elena. I want the real one. The complicated, messy, beautiful real one who eats terrible garlic bread and paints angry potatoes with my daughter and drives me crazy in the best possible way. That's a lot of adjectives. You're a lot of person. She kissed him, and Logan felt something settle in his chest, something that had been tight and anxious for 4 days finally relaxing. They stayed like that for a long moment, wrapped up in each other, until Elena pulled back just enough to speak. I have to tell you something, she said. Okay. The person who leaked that story about me paying your debt? I know who it was. Logan went still. Who? Christopher Hartwell, my ex. He's been trying to get back together for months, and when I kept saying no, he decided to make my life difficult instead. How do you know it was him? Because he called me yesterday to gloat about it, Said if I was going to embarrass myself dating beneath my station, I should at least expect consequences. Logan felt anger flare hot in his chest. He said that? Direct quote. He also said some other things I won't repeat because they'd make you want to punch him, and I'd rather you didn't get arrested. I want to punch him anyway. I know, but there's more. Elena stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. Christopher works for one of my father's subsidiary companies. He has access to information he shouldn't have, and I think he's been using that access to cover up some pretty serious financial fraud. What kind of fraud? The kind that involves offshore accounts and shell corporations and money laundering. I found evidence of it months ago when I was still working for my father's company. That's the real reason I left. I tried to tell my father, but he didn't believe me. He thought I was making excuses to quit because I was unhappy. Logan processed this. You have proof? I have copies of documents I wasn't supposed to have. Emails, transaction records, enough to prove Christopher and at least 2 other executives have been skimming money and hiding it offshore for years. Elena, that's serious. That's go to prison serious. I know. And Christopher knows I have the evidence. That's why he's trying to discredit me. If people think I'm just a spoiled heiress playing house with a mechanic, no one will take me seriously if I come forward. Logan sat down on the edge of her uncomfortable couch, trying to process this. When were you going to tell me? I didn't want to drag you into this mess. It's bad enough that being with me has made your life complicated. I didn't want to make it dangerous too. Dangerous how? Elena sat beside him. Men like Christopher don't just accept losing. They fight back. And they fight dirty. The fire at your garage last month. Wait, what fire? The small one in the storage room. You told me it was faulty wiring. Logan's blood went cold. That was faulty wiring. Are you sure? Because the fire inspector's report was filed and closed within 48 hours. That's unusually fast for a commercial property investigation. You're saying Christopher set fire to my garage? I'm saying it's suspicious. And I'm saying he's desperate enough to do worse if he thinks I'm going to expose him. Logan stood up, started pacing. We need to go to the police. With what? Copies of documents I obtained illegally by accessing my father's company servers after I'd already quit? No lawyer would touch that. It would get thrown out before we even got to trial. Then we get the documents legally. How? Logan thought about it. About Marcus Vale and his offer to help. About Diane's comment that sometimes charity was just kindness. About being too proud to ask for help when help was exactly what he needed. Your father, he said. We tell your father. He has the access. He can get the legal documents. And if you're right about the fraud, he'll want to stop it before it destroys his company. Elena shook her head. He won't believe me. I already tried. Maybe he'll believe both of us. Logan, my father barely tolerates you. He's not going to. He came to my garage to make sure I was serious about you. He gave me his personal number and told me to call if I needed anything. That's not a man who won't listen. That's a man who's trying to protect his daughter and doesn't know how. Elena looked at him like he'd just suggested they fly to the moon. You really think this could work? I think it's better than waiting for Christopher to escalate. And I think your father deserves to know his company is being stolen from under his nose. They sat in silence for a moment, Elena processing, Logan waiting. Finally, she nodded. Okay, we'll talk to my father, but Logan, if this goes bad, if he doesn't believe me, or if Christopher finds out what we're doing, then we'll deal with it together. You keep saying that like it's simple. It is simple. You and me. That's the only part that matters. Elena leaned against him, and Logan wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Through the windows, Seattle sprawled below them, millions of lights in the darkness. Somewhere in that city, Christopher Hartwell was probably congratulating himself on destroying Elena's credibility. Somewhere else, Marcus Vale was doing whatever billionaires did at night, probably ruining someone's life in a boardroom. And here, in this expensive apartment that felt wrong for the woman who lived in it, Logan and Elena sat together and tried to figure out how to fight back against people who had more money and power and connections than they could ever hope to have. Sophie asked about you, Logan said. What did you tell her? That we had a fight. She asked if you throw plates. Elena laughed. Why would I throw plates? Her friend's parents fight that way. She said if no one threw plates, it can't be that bad. Smart kid. Too smart. She also told me her mom made her promise to make sure I don't forget how to smile. Elena turned to look at him. Sarah said that? The day she died, apparently, when I went to get coffee. She told Sophie to take care of me. That's a lot of responsibility for an 8-year-old. She's handled it better than I have. Elena was quiet for a moment. Do you think Sarah would have liked me? Logan thought about his wife, about her fierce kindness and her inability to walk past anyone who needed help, about the way she saw the world as full of potential instead of problems. She would have loved you, he said. She would have loved that you painted with Sophie and ate terrible food without complaining and didn't run away when things got complicated. And she would have told me I was an idiot for letting you walk out of that garage without fighting to keep you there. You came after me eventually. Not soon enough. You're here now, that's what counts. They stayed on that uncomfortable couch until late into the night, making plans and contingencies and backup plans for when the contingencies failed. At some point, Logan dozed off, exhausted from 4 days of not sleeping, and when he woke up, it was dawn and Elena was curled against him, still asleep. Logan's phone buzzed, a text from Sophie. Is Elena coming to breakfast? He looked down at this woman sleeping against his shoulder, paint still under her fingernails, wearing a sweatshirt that had seen better days, looking nothing like a billionaire heiress, and everything like someone he was absolutely, terrifyingly in love with. He texted back, Yes, we'll pick you up in an hour. Sophie's response was immediate. Yay! Can we have pancakes? Sure. Real pancakes, not cereal pancakes. I don't know what cereal pancakes are. Good, keep it that way. Logan smiled, set the phone down, and watched the sun come up over Seattle. In a few hours, they'd go talk to Marcus Vail and set in motion something that might blow up spectacularly. Christopher Hartwell would fight back. The media would have a field day. Logan's life was about to get exponentially more complicated. But right now, in this moment, Elena was here and Sophie was waiting for pancakes, and the sunrise was turning the sky pink and gold, and everything felt possible. Logan had learned a long time ago that broken things didn't always stay broken. Sometimes, if you were patient and careful and willing to put in the work, you could fix them. Sometimes they came back stronger than before. He was starting to think the same might be true for people. Elena woke up when Logan shifted beside her, blinking against the morning light streaming through the windows. For a moment, she looked disoriented, like she'd forgotten where she was. Then her eyes focused on Logan, and she smiled. Did we sleep here all night? Most of it. Your neck is going to hate you. Already does. She sat up, stretching. What time is it? Almost 7. Sophie wants pancakes. Real pancakes or cereal pancakes? Logan laughed. Apparently cereal pancakes are a thing I'm not supposed to know about. Smart girl. Elena stood, running her fingers through her hair. Give me 10 minutes to change and we can go. 20 minutes later, they were picking up Sophie, who launched herself at Elena the moment she saw her. You're back. I'm back. Did you and Dad fix the fight? We're working on it. Sophie pulled back, studying Elena's face with that unnerving 8-year-old intensity. That's good enough. Now can we please get pancakes before I starve to death? You had breakfast 2 hours ago, Logan pointed out. That was forever ago. I'm a growing child. I need nutrients. They went to a diner near the garage, the kind of place with sticky tables and coffee that tasted like it had been brewed during the previous administration. Sophie ordered chocolate chip pancakes and proceeded to talk nonstop about the sleepover, about Madison's new kitten, about the science project they had to do on volcanoes that she was definitely going to win because her volcano was going to be better than everyone else's. Elena listened to all of it, asking questions, laughing at Sophie's increasingly elaborate volcano plans. Logan watched them both and felt something settle in his chest that had been restless for days. His phone buzzed. Marcus Vail. My office. 2 p.m. Bring Elena and whatever evidence she has. Logan showed Elena the text. She went pale. He knows. I called him this morning while you were sleeping, told him we needed to talk about Christopher Hartwell. Logan. You said your father wouldn't believe you. Maybe he'll believe us together. Sophie looked up from her pancakes. Who's Christopher Hartwell? No one important, Elena said quickly. Then why do you look scared? I'm not scared. Yes, you are. Your hands are shaking. Elena looked down at her hands, which were indeed shaking slightly. She set down her coffee cup. You don't miss anything, do you? Nope. Dad says I got Mom's brain and his stubbornness. It's a terrible combination. I've heard. Sophie turned to Logan. Is Elena in trouble? No, sweetheart. Are you lying to make me feel better? Logan sighed. A little bit. I knew it. Sophie looked at Elena. What kind of trouble? The complicated adult kind, Elena said. But your dad and I are going to fix it. Do you need help? I'm really good at fixing things. I helped Dad fix Mrs. Patterson's lawnmower last summer. You held a flashlight while I fixed Mrs. Patterson's lawnmower. That's helping! Elena smiled despite the tension in her shoulders. I think we've got it handled, but thank you for offering. After breakfast, Logan dropped Sophie at school and drove Elena to her apartment so she could get the documents she'd copied. She came back down 20 minutes later carrying a leather portfolio that looked expensive and out of place against her paint-stained jeans. This is everything? Logan asked. Everything I could get before they changed the access codes. Bank transfers, email chains, incorporation documents for 3 shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands. It's enough to prove fraud if anyone bothers to look at it seriously. Your father will look at it seriously. I hope you're right. They drove to Marcus Vale's office in silence. The building was downtown, all glass and steel, and the kind of modern architecture that looked impressive but cold. Security waved them through after checking IDs, and they rode the elevator to the 42nd floor. Marcus Vale's assistant was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. She showed them into a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Mr. Vale will be with you shortly, she said, and left. Elena set the portfolio on the table, then immediately picked it up again, then set it down. Logan caught her hand. Hey, we've got this. Do we? We've got each other. That's close enough. The door opened and Marcus Vale walked in, followed by 2 people Logan didn't recognize, a man in his 60s wearing an expression of professional skepticism and a younger woman carrying a tablet. Elena, Marcus nodded to his daughter, then to Logan. Mr. Hayes, this is Robert Chen, my head of legal, and Amanda Price, my forensic accountant. He sat down at the head of the table. You said this was about Christopher Hartwell and some concerns regarding company finances. I'm listening. Elena glanced at Logan, who nodded. She took a breath and slid the portfolio across the table to her father. Christopher has been embezzling from Vale Industries for at least 3 years. He's using offshore shell companies to hide assets and falsifying reports to cover the missing money. I have documentation of transactions totaling over $40 million that can't be accounted for through legitimate business channels. Marcus opened the portfolio and began reading. His expression didn't change. Robert Chen leaned over to look at the documents, his skepticism shifting to something sharper. Where did you get these? Chen asked. I copied them from company servers before I resigned. That's illegal. I know, which means none of this is admissible in any legal proceeding. I know that too, but it gives you a roadmap. You have legitimate access. You can pull the real files legally and verify everything I'm showing you. Marcus was still reading, his face unreadable. Amanda Price had pulled out her tablet and was taking notes, her fingers flying across the screen. These account numbers, Amanda said, pointing to one of the documents. Do they match anything in our system? Elena rattled off a series of numbers from memory. Amanda's eyes widened. Those are vendor payment accounts. We use them for overseas manufacturing contracts. Except the vendors don't exist. The companies are registered, but they're shells. No employees, no physical locations, no actual business operations. The money goes in and disappears. Marcus finally looked up from the documents. How long have you known about this? I found the first discrepancy 8 months ago. I spent 3 months trying to verify it before I was sure. Then I spent another month trying to figure out how to tell you. You could have just told me. I tried. You said I was making excuses to quit because I didn't want to work for you anymore. Marcus's jaw tightened. I said that? Almost word for word, so I stopped trying and left instead. The silence that followed was heavy. Robert Chen was reading through more documents, his expression darkening. Amanda was pulling up files on her tablet, cross-referencing numbers. If this is accurate, Chen said slowly, we're looking at systemic fraud across multiple departments. This isn't just Hartwell. He couldn't have done this alone. He had help, Elena confirmed. At minimum, David Kowalski in accounting and Jennifer Morrison in acquisitions, possibly others. Marcus stood up and walked to the windows, looking out over the city. Christopher Hartwell has worked for me for 6 years. His father and I went to school together. I was at his wedding. I know. And you're telling me he's been stealing from me the entire time. I'm telling you what the evidence shows. What you do with that information is up to you. Marcus turned back to face them. Why now? Why wait months and then suddenly bring this to me with your mechanic boyfriend in tow? Logan bristled at the dismissive tone, but Elena squeezed his hand under the table. Because Christopher found out I had evidence and he's trying to discredit me before I can use it. He leaked the story about me paying Logan's debt to make me look like a spoiled rich girl playing at Rebellion. He's been calling reporters, spreading rumors, doing everything he can to destroy my credibility. And I think... She paused. I think he might have been behind the fire at Logan's garage. That got Marcus's attention. What fire? Logan spoke up. Small fire in my storage room about 3 weeks ago. Fire inspector said it was faulty wiring, but the investigation closed suspiciously fast. You think Christopher Hartwell committed arson? I think desperate men do desperate things. Marcus looked at Logan for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to Robert Chen. I want a full audit. Everything Hartwell has touched in the last 5 years, and I want it done quietly. If he catches wind that we're investigating, he'll destroy evidence and run. That could take weeks, Chen said. Then you'd better get started. What about Christopher? Elena asked. He's not going to just sit around waiting for you to build a case. Leave Christopher to me. Dad? Elena, I'm asking you to trust me. Can you do that? She looked at her father, really looked at him, and Logan saw the years of hurt and miscommunication between them. But he also saw something else, something that looked like hope trying to survive in hostile territory. Yes, Elena said quietly. I can do that. Marcus nodded once. Good. Robert, Amanda, get to work. Elena, Mr. Hayes, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll be in touch. It was a clear dismissal. Elena stood up, gathering the portfolio, and Logan followed her out. They didn't speak until they were in the elevator, doors closed, heading down. That went better than I expected, Logan said. Did it? He believed you. That's something. He believed the documents. That's not the same thing. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor and they walked out into the lobby. Christopher Hartwell was standing by the security desk, talking on his phone. He looked up as they passed, and his expression shifted from surprise to something uglier. Elena, he called out. She kept walking. Elena, don't be rude, I just want to talk. Logan felt her hand tighten in his, but she stopped and turned around. Christopher walked over, all-expensive suit and practiced charm that didn't quite hide the calculating look in his eyes. Christopher, I heard you were here, meeting with Daddy about something important? He said it with mock concern that set Logan's teeth on edge. That's none of your business. Everything that happens in this company is my business. I'm Senior VP of Operations, remember? Your father trusts me. We'll see how long that lasts. Christopher's smile faltered slightly. What's that supposed to mean? It means you should probably update your resume. I hear prison doesn't look great on LinkedIn. His eyes went cold. You're making a mistake, Elena. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you can prove, it won't work. You're a spoiled little girl playing detective, and you're going to get hurt. Logan stepped forward. I think you should walk away now. Christopher looked at him like he'd just noticed a bug on his shoe. And you are? The mechanic who's about to knock your teeth out if you don't stop threatening my girlfriend. Your girlfriend? Christopher laughed. Is that what she is? How much is she paying you to play house? Because we both know someone like you wouldn't be with someone like her unless there was money involved. Logan's fist connected with Christopher's jaw before he'd consciously decided to throw the punch. Christopher went down hard, his phone skittering across the polished floor. Security started running toward them immediately. Logan! Elena grabbed his arm. He had it coming. He absolutely did, but now you're going to get arrested. Security arrived, 2 large men who looked like they'd been hoping for something to happen today. One helped Christopher to his feet, while the other stepped between Logan and his target. We're leaving, Elena said quickly. Right now. This is over. The hell it is, ooh, Christopher snarled, blood on his lip. I'm pressing charges. Assault. Battery. Whatever sticks. You threatened his girlfriend and got what you deserved, Elena shot back. There are cameras everywhere in this lobby. Try pressing charges and see how that goes. Christopher's eyes darted to the cameras mounted on the walls. His expression shifted, calculating. You think you're so smart, he said to Elena, but you have no idea what you're starting. Your father won't believe you. He never has. And when this all blows up in your face, don't come crying to me. I wouldn't come to you if you were the last person on Earth. Elena pulled Logan toward the exit before anything else could happen. They made it to the truck, and Logan started driving, his hand throbbing, but the adrenaline still pumping. I'm sorry, he said. I shouldn't have hit him. Don't apologize. I've wanted to hit him for months. That doesn't make it smart. No, but it makes it satisfying. Elena looked over at him. Are you okay? My hand hurts. You punched a guy. That's how physics works. Despite everything, Logan laughed. Fair point. They drove in silence for a few minutes before Elena's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and went pale. It's my father. She answered, listened for a moment, then said, Yes, I know. We're sorry about that. Christopher was... Yes, I understand. We will. She hung up and looked at Logan. My father wants us to come to dinner tomorrow night. To talk about Christopher? To talk about us. About what happens next. About whether we're serious enough about each other to survive what's coming. What is coming? A war, Elena said quietly. Christopher won't go down easy. When my father starts that audit, Christopher will know what's happening. He'll fight back, and he'll come after both of us to do it. Logan pulled over to the side of the road and put the truck in park. He turned to face Elena. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay. Is this worth it? All of this. The fights, the media attention, the danger. Is it worth it to you? Elena looked at him like he'd asked if the sky was blue. Logan, you're the first real thing that's happened to me in years. You and Sophie. You're the first people who've seen me as just Elena instead of a walking trust fund. So yes, it's worth it, every bit of it. Even if it gets worse before it gets better? Especially then. Logan leaned across the console and kissed her, and for a moment the rest of the world disappeared. When they broke apart, Elena was smiling. We should probably pick up Sophie soon, she said. Probably. She's going to ask why my knuckles are bruised. Tell her you were defending my honor. She'll think that's something from a fairy tale. Maybe it is. Maybe we're writing our own version. They picked up Sophie from school, and she immediately noticed Logan's hand. What happened to your knuckles? I hit something. On purpose or by accident? Very much on purpose. Sophie looked at Elena. Did he defend your honor? How did you know? Because Dad only hits things on purpose when someone's being mean to people he cares about. One time he punched a guy at my soccer game for yelling at the referee. That guy was being a jerk, Logan defended. He was. But you still got banned from 2 games for violence. Sophie turned back to Elena. Was the person being a jerk? The biggest jerk imaginable. Then it's okay. Mom always said standing up to jerks was important, even when it got you in trouble. They went back to Logan's house and made dinner together. Actual cooking, not takeout or cereal masquerading as a meal. Sophie insisted on helping, which meant flour ended up everywhere, and the kitchen looked like a disaster zone. But the pasta came out good and they ate it at the small kitchen table that barely fit 3 people. Halfway through dinner, Logan's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Hayes, this is Detective Sarah Morrison with Seattle PD. I need to ask you some questions about an incident earlier today at Vail Industries. Logan's stomach dropped. I already explained that to security. I understand, but Mr. Hartwell is pressing charges for assault. I need you to come down to the station to give a statement. Elena grabbed the phone from Logan's hand. Detective Morrison, this is Elena Vail. Christopher Hartwell threatened both of us before Logan defended himself. There's security footage that will show exactly what happened. If Hartwell wants to press charges, he's going to look like an idiot. There was a pause on the other end. Ms. Vail, are you an attorney? No, but I have several on retainer, and they'll be very interested to hear that a man who threatened me is now using the police to harass my boyfriend. Another pause. I still need Mr. Hayes to come in and give a statement. Fine. We'll be there in an hour. Elena hung up and looked at Logan. We're going to the police station.
What about Sophie? Sophie raised her hand. I can go to Madison's house. Her mom already texted asking if I wanted a sleepover.
This is turning into a habit. Madison's house is fun. They have a pool table and her mom makes real pancakes. Are you saying my pancakes aren't real? I'm saying they're cereal adjacent. Despite the stress of the situation, Logan laughed. He called Madison's mom, arranged the sleepover, and an hour later he and Elena were sitting in an interview room at the police station giving statements about what happened. Detective Morrison was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of expression that said she'd heard every lie and wasn't interested in hearing another one. She listened to both their versions of events, made notes, and then sat back. The security footage backs up your story, she said. Hartwell threatened Ms. Vale verbally. Mr. Hayes threw one punch. No weapon, no continued assault after Hartwell went down. Legally, you could argue defense of another person. So I'm not being arrested? Logan asked. Hartwell wants you arrested. The evidence suggests it was provoked. I'm declining to press charges, but that doesn't mean Hartwell won't try to pursue this civilly. Let him try, Elena said. My lawyers are better than his. Morrison looked at her with something that might have been respect. Ms. Vale, can I ask you something off the record? Sure. What's your relationship with Christopher Hartwell, beyond the obvious professional connection? We dated for 8 months. He wanted access to my father's business connections, and I wanted someone who saw me as more than a bank account. Neither of us got what we wanted. And now? Now he's angry that I moved on and he's taking it out on Logan because he's a vindictive child in an expensive suit. Morrison almost smiled. That's the most honest thing anyone said to me all week. She stood up. You're free to go. But Mr. Hayes, if Hartwell provokes you again, walk away. Next time I might not be the one handling the case. They left the police station and sat in Logan's truck in the parking lot, both of them exhausted. This is insane, Logan said. Welcome to my world. How do you live like this? I don't. That's why I drove around alone with a broken car, hoping no one would recognize me. Elena leaned her head against his shoulder. Logan, if this is too much, if you want to walk away, I'll understand. I'm dragging you into a mess that has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me. You're in it, which means I'm in it. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works. You don't get to push me away to protect me. We're past that. Elena lifted her head to look at him. When did you get so stubborn? I've always been stubborn. You just didn't notice because you were busy being more stubborn than me. She kissed him, soft and slow, and Logan felt the fear and stress of the day start to ease. When they broke apart, Elena was smiling. Tomorrow we have dinner with my father. Are you ready for that? Not even a little bit. Me neither. But we'll survive it together. Together, Logan repeated. I'm starting to really like that word. They drove through Seattle as the sun set, turning the sky orange and pink. Somewhere in the city, Christopher Hartwell was probably plotting his next move. Somewhere else, Marcus Vale was reading through financial documents and realizing his daughter had been right all along. And somewhere, Sophie was teaching Madison's family about cereal pancakes and accidentally creating a generation of children who would never trust breakfast again. But here, in this truck that made concerning noises and needed work, Logan kept putting off, Elena and Logan drove toward tomorrow with no idea if things would get better or worse, just knowing they'd face it together. Sometimes that was enough. Dinner at Marcus Vale's house was not what Logan expected. He'd pictured some massive estate with servants and uncomfortable furniture and the kind of cold formality that made you afraid to breathe wrong. Instead, Marcus lived in a surprisingly normal house in Magnolia, big, sure, but not obscene. The furniture looked lived in. There were books on the shelves that had actually been read, their spines cracked and pages worn. Marcus answered the door himself, wearing slacks and a sweater instead of the power suit Logan had seen him in before. He looked older somehow, more human. Elena, Mr. Hayes, come in. They followed him to a dining room where the table was set for 3. No staff hovering, no pretense. Just a father who'd cooked dinner for his daughter and the man she was dating, even if the food looked suspiciously like it had come from a very expensive restaurant and been carefully plated to look homemade. I didn't cook, Marcus admitted, noticing Logan's expression. I'm terrible in the kitchen, but I did set the table myself, so that counts for something. Elena stared at her father like she'd never seen him before. You set the table. I'm capable of basic tasks, Elena. Since when? Since I realized my daughter thinks I'm so disconnected from normal life that I can't operate a dishwasher. He pulled out a chair for her. Sit, both of you. Let's eat before the food gets cold. Dinner was awkward at first, all of them carefully navigating conversation around the real reason they were there. Marcus asked about Sophie, and Logan found himself talking about soccer practice and science projects and the ongoing breakfast cereal debate. Elena watched the exchange with barely concealed surprise. Finally, over dessert that Marcus definitely hadn't made, he set down his fork and looked at his daughter. The audit confirmed everything you documented. Christopher embezzled $43 million over 4 years. David Kowalski and Jennifer Morrison were complicit. There are 3 other employees involved in smaller capacities. Elena went very still. You believe me? I always believed you. I just didn't want to accept that I'd been that blind, that I'd trusted the wrong people for so long. You told me I was making excuses. I did. And I was wrong. I'm sorry, Elena. The words came out stiff, like Marcus wasn't used to saying them. I spent so long building this company that I forgot to pay attention to what was happening inside it, or to my own daughter. Elena's eyes were bright. Dad, let me finish. When your mother died, I threw myself into work because I didn't know how to be a single parent to a grieving teenager. I thought if I could provide for you financially, that would be enough. I was wrong about that too. I pushed you away when you needed me most, and I've been pushing you away ever since. You weren't the only one who pulled away. No, but I was the parent. I should have been better. The silence that followed was heavy with years of hurt finally being acknowledged. Logan felt like he was intruding on something private, but when he started to stand, Marcus waved him back down. You should hear this too, Mr. Hayes, because what happens next involves all of us. Logan sat back down. What happens next? Tomorrow morning, I'm filing charges against Christopher Hartwell and the others. Federal prosecutors are involved. The FBI is already building their case. This is going to be major news, and when it breaks, every reporter in the city is going to be looking for Elena to comment. I won't, Elena said immediately. I know, but they'll still come after you. They'll dig into your past, your relationship with Christopher, why you left the company, and they'll absolutely come after Mr. Hayes. Let them, Logan said. I've got nothing to hide. Everyone has something to hide. The question is whether you're prepared for strangers to find it and put it on the internet for entertainment. Logan thought about Sarah, about the accident that killed her. A drunk driver running a red light, nothing Logan could have prevented, but he'd spent months replaying it anyway. About the depression that followed, the days he couldn't get out of bed while Sophie stayed with his mother. About the bankruptcy he'd barely avoided when the medical bills came due and the life insurance wasn't enough. They can look all they want, he said. My wife died. I fell apart. I put myself back together for my daughter. That's not a secret. That's just my life. Marcus studied him for a long moment. You're tougher than you look. I'm a mechanic who raises an 8-year-old alone. Tough comes with the job description. Fair enough? Marcus turned back to Elena. Christopher's lawyers have already filed a restraining order against Mr. Hayes for the assault in the lobby. That's ridiculous, Elena said. Christopher threatened us first. I know, the restraining order won't hold up. But it's a warning shot. Christopher knows what's coming, and he's going to fight dirty. He's already leaked to 3 different news outlets that Elena has been unstable since leaving the company, that she's making up stories about fraud to get revenge for their breakup. No one will believe that once the FBI confirms the evidence. No. But they'll believe it long enough to destroy her reputation in the meantime. Marcus looked at Logan. They're already writing stories about you too. About how a struggling mechanic suddenly has money problems solved right before dating a billionaire's daughter. They're implying you seduced Elena for financial gain. Logan felt anger flare in his chest. I never asked her for money. I know, but the truth doesn't matter to people who've already decided the story they want to tell. Elena reached for Logan's hand under the table. What do we do? We fight back. Tomorrow night there's a charity gala at the Fairmont. 500 people, all of Seattle's business elite. Christopher will be there, along with everyone who believed his version of events. I want you both there too. Why? Logan asked. Because we're going to announce the fraud charges publicly, and I want Christopher to see that Elena isn't hiding, that she's standing beside her father and the man she loves, and that we're united against him. Elena squeezed Logan's hand. You want to humiliate him. I want to show him that he didn't win, that he didn't destroy you or intimidate you into silence. And yes, I want him to feel what it's like to be exposed in front of everyone he tried to impress. That's vindictive.
It absolutely is. Do you have a problem with that? Elena smiled, and it was fierce. Not even a little bit. Marcus looked at Logan. Mr. Hayes, are you comfortable attending an event where you'll be photographed, scrutinized, and probably insulted by people who think you're beneath them? Will there be food? Marcus blinked. I'm sorry? At this gala, will there be food? Because if I'm going to be insulted by rich people, I'd at least like to eat their fancy appetizers while it happens. For the first time since Logan had met him, Marcus Vail laughed. Actually laughed, deep and genuine. Yes, Mr. Hayes, there will be food. Then I'm in. They spent the next hour planning. Marcus explained that he had arranged for his lawyers to make an announcement during the gala's program, a statement about the fraud investigation and the charges being filed. It would be coordinated with a press release, and law enforcement would be on standby in case Christopher tried to run. He won't run, Elena said. He's too arrogant. He thinks he can talk his way out of anything. Then he's about to learn otherwise. When they left Marcus's house, Logan drove Elena back to her apartment. They sat in his truck outside her building, neither of them ready to say goodnight. My father likes you, Elena said. Your father tolerates me because you like me. No, he actually likes you. I've never seen him laugh like that. I made a joke about appetizers. That's not exactly stand-up comedy material. Elena turned to face him. You're good at that. Making tense situations feel lighter. Making people feel normal even when everything around them is chaos. It's a survival skill. When your wife dies and you have an 8-year-old asking why mommy isn't coming home, you learn to find moments of light in the dark. Is that what I am to you? A moment of light? Logan cupped her face in his hands. Elena, you're not a moment. You're the whole damn sunrise. She kissed him, and Logan felt the fear and stress of everything they were facing melt away for a few seconds. When they broke apart, Elena was smiling. Tomorrow's going to be terrible, she said. Probably. We're going to be stared at and judged, and people are going to say awful things. Almost definitely. Are you scared? Terrified, but I'm more scared of letting you face it alone. You don't have to do this. You could walk away right now and no one would blame you. I would blame me. And more importantly, Sophie would blame me. She already told me if I let you go, she's disowning me and moving in with Madison's family. Elena laughed. She did not say that. Word for word, apparently they have a pool table and real pancakes. Your daughter has good priorities. She gets it from her mother. They said goodnight and Logan drove home, where Sophie was waiting up despite it being past her bedtime. How was dinner with Elena's dad? Surprisingly good. Did he like you? I think so. Good. Because I like Elena, and if her dad doesn't like you, that makes everything complicated. When did you get so wise? I watch a lot of TV while you're at work. I've learned things. Logan pulled his daughter into a hug. I love you, kid. I love you too, Dad. Are you and Elena going to get married? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. Maybe. Would that be okay with you? Sophie pulled back to look at him seriously. Is she going to try to replace Mom? No one could replace your mom. Elena knows that. Then, yes, it would be okay. More than okay. Elena makes you happy, and she makes really good spaghetti. Those are important qualifications for a stepmom. I haven't even proposed yet. You will, I can tell. You look at her the way you used to look at Mom, like she's the best thing that ever happened to you. Logan's throat tightened. She's one of the best things. You're still number one. I know, I'm awesome. Sophie grinned. Now go to bed. You have a fancy party tomorrow, and you need to look good so Elena's not embarrassed by you. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Anytime. The next day passed in a blur. Logan worked on 3 cars, picked up Sophie from school, and tried very hard not to think about the evening ahead. At 5 o'clock, Elena showed up at his house carrying a garment bag and looking nervous. I brought you a suit, she said. I have a suit. Logan, I've seen your suit. It's from 2003 and it doesn't fit anymore. How do you know it doesn't fit? Lucky guess. Please just try this one on.
The suit fit perfectly, which annoyed Logan because it meant Elena had been paying attention to his measurements. It was dark gray, expensive without being flashy, and when he looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. Sophie whistled. "Dad, you look like a real adult." "What do I usually look like?" "A dad who fixes cars and makes cereal for breakfast." "That is a real adult." "You know what I mean." Elena came out of the bathroom wearing a dress that made Logan forget how to breathe. It was deep blue, simple but elegant, and she looked like she belonged at fancy galas while Logan looked like he was playing dress-up. "Stop thinking that," Elena said. "Thinking what?" "That you don't belong. I can see it on your face." "Mind reader now?" "No, just someone who knows what it feels like to not fit in anywhere." She crossed to him, adjusted his tie. "We belong together. That's the only thing that matters." They dropped Sophie at Madison's house, where she immediately started telling Madison's mom about the upcoming volcano project that was going to be better than everyone else's. Logan wondered if he should warn the school about potential volcanic overachievement. The Fairmont Olympic Hotel was exactly as intimidating as Logan feared. Valet parking, red carpet, photographers waiting to snap pictures of arrivals. Elena squeezed his hand as they walked in. "Smile, pretend you don't care what they think." "I don't care what they think." "Then actually don't care instead of saying you don't care while clearly caring." "That's not helpful advice." "Welcome to my world." Inside, the ballroom was full of people wearing clothes that cost more than Logan's truck. Crystal chandeliers, live orchestra, waiters carrying champagne, and those fancy appetizers Marcus had promised. Logan grabbed one, some kind of pastry thing with cheese, and decided if nothing else, at least the food was good. Marcus found them within minutes. "Elena, Mr. Hayes, you both look good." "Thanks, Dad." "Christopher's here. Far corner, near the bar. He's already holding court, telling everyone who'll listen that this investigation is a vindictive attack by a bitter ex-girlfriend." Elena's expression hardened. "Let him talk. Words won't save him." "No, but be prepared. He's going to confront you before the night is over." Marcus was right. 20 minutes later, Christopher appeared at Elena's elbow, drink in hand, smile on his face like they were old friends. "Elena, you look beautiful. And Mr. Hayes, still wearing suits that don't quite fit, I see." Logan looked down at his perfectly tailored suit. "Seems to fit fine to me." "Of course it does." Christopher's smile didn't waver. "Elena, can we talk? Privately?" "No. It's about the misunderstanding with your father's investigation. I think we can clear this up before it gets out of hand." "There's no misunderstanding. You stole $43 million. The FBI has proof. You're going to prison." Christopher's smile finally cracked. "You're making a mistake. When this falls apart and you realize you've destroyed innocent people's careers over a grudge, don't come crying to me for forgiveness. I wouldn't come to you if you were the last person on earth. I believe I've already told you that. You're pathetic, Elena. You know that? You threw away everything, your career, your reputation, your place in society. For what? This mechanic who can barely afford to feed his kid? Do you really think this is going to last? That he actually loves you and not your money?" Logan stepped forward, but Elena put a hand on his chest. "Christopher, I'm going to say this once, so listen carefully. Logan is twice the man you'll ever be. He's honest, kind, loyal, and he sees me as a person instead of a bank account. You never did. You never could. And yes, I threw away my career and my reputation and my place in your world, and it was the best decision I ever made. Because your world is full of people like you, hollow, greedy, and so desperate for status they've forgotten what it means to be human." Christopher's face flushed red. "You're going to regret this." "The only thing I regret is wasting 8 months dating you when I could have been doing literally anything else." Christopher looked like he wanted to say something cutting, but before he could, Marcus appeared with a woman Logan recognized as the event organizer. "Mr. Hartwell, I need you to come with me," she said. "There's been a situation." "What situation?" "The FBI would like to speak with you." Christopher went pale. "I'm in the middle of a conversation." "It wasn't a request, sir." 2 men in dark suits appeared from the crowd. Not Marcus's security, but actual federal agents. They didn't make a scene, but they didn't need to. Everyone nearby stopped talking, watching as Christopher was escorted out of the ballroom. Marcus stepped up to the podium where the event organizer had been about to introduce the evening's program. The room went quiet. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption, but I have an announcement to make regarding Vale Industries. He paused, and Logan could see the effort it took for him to say the next words. Earlier today, I learned that several executives within my company have been engaged in systematic fraud and embezzlement totaling over $40 million. Federal charges have been filed, and the individuals responsible are currently being taken into custody. The room erupted in whispers. Camera phones came out. Marcus held up a hand. I take full responsibility for not discovering this sooner. I trusted the wrong people, and I failed to protect my company and my employees. But I want to be clear about something else. He looked directly at Elena. My daughter discovered this fraud months ago. She tried to tell me, and I didn't listen. She left the company rather than be complicit in something she knew was wrong. And when those responsible tried to destroy her reputation to silence her, she stood her ground. Elena, I'm sorry I didn't believe you when it mattered, and I'm proud of you for doing the right thing even when it cost you everything. Elena was crying openly now. Logan put his arm around her shoulders. The room was dead silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Within seconds, the entire ballroom was applauding, not for Marcus, but for Elena, who was standing beside a mechanic in a borrowed suit, tears running down her face, finally vindicated after months of being called a liar. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Reporters wanted statements. Other business people came up to offer support or sympathy or thinly veiled curiosity. Logan stayed by Elena's side through all of it, saying very little, just being there. Near midnight, they escaped to a balcony overlooking the city. Seattle spread out below them, millions of lights in the darkness. How are you feeling? Logan asked. Exhausted, relieved, terrified. All of the above. That's a lot of feelings. It's been a lot of night. She leaned against the railing. My father apologized, in front of 500 people. I never thought I'd see that. He meant it. I know, that's what makes it so overwhelming. Logan pulled her close, and they stood together watching the city. After a while, Elena spoke again. Logan? Yeah? Thank you for being here, for standing beside me through all of this, for not running when things got complicated. Where else would I be? Anywhere. Anywhere that was easier and safer and less chaotic than this. Easier and safer sounds boring. I've had boring. I'll take chaotic with you over boring without you any day. She turned to kiss him, and Logan thought about how strange life was. 6 months ago, he'd been alone, exhausted, barely keeping his garage running and his daughter fed. Now he was at a charity gala in a borrowed suit, kissing a woman he loved while her father faced his demons and her ex-boyfriend faced federal charges. Strange. But good strange. The kind that reminded you that broken things could heal if you gave them enough time and care and honest effort. 3 months later, Logan stood in his garage and looked around at the changes. The place was cleaner, better organized. He'd hired 2 mechanics to help with the overflow of work, had finally fixed his truck's transmission, had even repainted the walls. But the biggest change was the building next door. Elena's art center had opened 2 weeks ago. Classes for kids, painting workshops, a community space where people could come and create without worrying about money or status or whether they were good enough. Sophie was there right now, teaching a group of younger kids how to paint angry potatoes that actually looked good. Elena came through the connecting door between the garage and the center, paint in her hair as usual. Hey, how's the carburetor situation? Complicated, needs parts I don't have. Story of your life. Pretty much. She walked over and kissed him, tasting like coffee and paint and home. I got a call from my father. The sentencing hearing for Christopher is next week. How are you feeling about that? Ready for it to be over. Ready to move on. Christopher had pleaded guilty to avoid trial. So had Kowalski and Morrison. They were all facing significant prison time. Marcus had restructured the company, brought in new executives, and started the slow process of rebuilding trust. He and Elena had dinner every Sunday now. It was still awkward sometimes, but they were trying. Logan's phone buzzed. Sophie. Can Elena come to the science fair tonight? The volcano is amazing and I want her to see it. He showed Elena the text. She grinned. Would I miss Sophie's volcano debut? Never.
That evening, they sat in the school gymnasium watching Sophie present her science project to a panel of very serious judges who were trying not to laugh at her enthusiastic explanation of magma chambers and tectonic plates. The volcano erupted on cue, impressively messy, and Sophie beamed like she'd just split the atom.
She got second place, which she insisted was only because Tommy Richardson's project on renewable energy was annoyingly good. But she was happy, and that's what mattered. Walking to the car afterward, Sophie between them holding both their hands, Logan felt something settle in his chest. This was family. Imperfect, chaotic, cobbled together from broken pieces and second chances, but real. More real than anything he'd had in years. "Can we get ice cream?" Sophie asked. "It's a school night," Logan said, "but I got second place in the science fair. That deserves ice cream." "She makes a good point," Elena said. "You're supposed to be on my side." "I'm on Sophie's side. She's more persuasive." They got ice cream. Sat in the parlor eating sundaes while Sophie recounted every moment of the science fair in excruciating detail. An older couple at the next table smiled at them. Just another family out for Tuesday night ice cream. Nothing special, nothing remarkable. Except it was remarkable. Because 6 months ago, Logan had been alone. And now he wasn't. Because Elena had walked away from everything she knew to find something real, and she'd found it. Because Sophie had a second person in her life who loved her unconditionally and showed up for school science fairs and ate terrible garlic bread without complaint. Later, after dropping Sophie home with Logan's mother for the night, Logan drove Elena to the garage. They walked through the quiet space together, ending up in front of the mural Sophie had painted on the back wall. A sunset over mountains. Surprisingly good for a 9-year-old. "She's talented," Elena said. "She gets it from you." "She gets it from herself. I just gave her permission to try." Logan pulled Elena close, breathing in the smell of paint and coffee that always clung to her. "I've been thinking about something. Should I be worried?" "Probably." He pulled back enough to look at her. "Move in with me. You and all your dying plants and your paint supplies and your terrible cooking. Move into my house that's too small and has bad plumbing and needs work I keep putting off." Elena stared at him. "Are you serious?" "Completely. You're there most nights anyway. Sophie keeps asking why you have a separate apartment when you could just live with us. And I wake up every morning, you're not there, and the house feels wrong." "Logan, I live in a luxury apartment. Your house has 1 bathroom." "I know, and you'd be trading down in every material way, but you'd be trading up in every way that matters. At least, I hope you would." Elena's eyes were bright. "You're really bad at romantic proposals." "This isn't a proposal. That comes later. This is me asking you to take the next step. To stop living in 2 places and just be here. With us. Permanently." "What if we drive each other crazy?" "We already drive each other crazy. Might as well do it under the same roof." Elena laughed, wiping her eyes. "Okay." "Okay?" "Yes. I'll move in. My plants and my terrible cooking and all of it." Logan kissed her, and it felt like a promise. Like the beginning of something that would probably be messy and complicated and absolutely worth every second. 2 months later, Elena's things filled half of Logan's house. Art supplies in the spare room, her clothes in his closet, her presence in every corner making the place feel full in ways it hadn't since Sarah died. Sophie had adjusted faster than either of them expected, declaring that having Elena around meant she finally had someone who understood that breakfast was about more than just opening a cereal box. They fell into a rhythm. Logan worked at the garage. Elena ran the art center. Sophie went to school and painted murals and continued her quest to create the world's most elaborate science projects. They ate dinner together most nights, argued about whose turn it was to do dishes, and slowly built a life that felt solid despite being constructed from broken pieces. On a Saturday afternoon in late spring, Logan took Sophie to the garage on the pretense of needing her help with inventory. She complained the whole way there, insisting that inventory was boring and she'd rather be at Madison's house planning their summer pool party strategy. But when they walked into the garage, Elena was there with a paint-covered canvas drop cloth spread across the floor. "What's this?" Sophie asked. "A project," Elena said. "For all of us." Over the next 3 hours they painted. Not angry potatoes or science fair projects, but a mural for the garage wall, something that captured who they were. Sophie painted herself in the middle, arms spread wide. Logan painted the garage behind her, tools scattered, life messy and real. And Elena painted the art center beside it, the two buildings connected, colors bleeding between them. When they stepped back to look at it, Sophie grinned. "We look like a family." "We are a family," Elena said. "I know, but now we look like it too." That night, after Sophie had gone to bed, Logan and Elena sat on the back porch of the house that was now theirs instead of his. The Seattle rain had started again, gentle this time, washing the city clean. "I need to tell you something," Logan said. "Should I be worried?" "That depends. How do you feel about jewelry?" Elena turned to look at him, eyes wide. "Logan," he pulled out a ring box. Simple, nothing fancy, because fancy had never been their style. "I know we said we'd take things slow, but I've spent 3 years being careful and safe and scared of anything that might hurt. And then you showed up with your broken car and your terrible coat, and you reminded me that the best things in life are worth the risk." "Logan, let me finish. You make Sophie laugh. You make terrible pancakes that we eat anyway. You see me, not the widowed mechanic or the struggling single dad, just me. And I love you. I'm in love with you. So yes, this is me proposing. This is me asking if you want to make this permanent." Elena was crying, which Logan took as a good sign. She nodded, unable to speak. "Is that a yes?" "Yes, yes, you idiot. Of course it's yes." He slid the ring on her finger and she kissed him, and Logan thought about all the things that had to break for this moment to exist. His wife dying. Elena discovering fraud and losing her career. Two people's lives falling apart in different ways, in different worlds, until a rainy night and a broken car brought them together. He'd spent years thinking that broken things just stayed broken, that the best you could hope for was to keep functioning, keep moving forward, keep the pieces from scattering completely. But he'd been wrong. Sometimes broken things healed. Sometimes they came back different but stronger. Sometimes they found other broken things and fit together in ways that made something entirely new. Logan had fixed thousands of cars in his life, had taken apart engines and transmissions and carburetors, had replaced worn-out parts and coaxed life back into metal that should have quit years ago. But the most valuable thing he'd ever repaired wasn't a car. It was his own broken heart. And he'd done it not by replacing what was lost, but by making room for something new, by letting Elena in, by accepting that loving someone new didn't erase loving someone who was gone, by understanding that Sophie needed to see her father choose happiness instead of just survival. 6 months later, they got married in the garage where they'd first met. Sophie was the flower girl in scattered petals with the kind of dramatic flair that suggested a future in theater. Marcus walked Elena down the makeshift aisle, his eyes suspiciously bright. Madison and her family were there, along with Diane from the garage and half of Sophie's school, and people from the art center and mechanics Logan had worked with for years. It wasn't fancy. The decorations were mostly Sophie's paintings hung on the walls. The food was catered by the diner where they'd had pancakes that first morning after their fight. Logan wore the suit Elena had bought him for the gala, and Elena wore a simple dress that she'd probably still get paint on within a week. But it was theirs. Completely, perfectly theirs. During the vows, Logan promised to always help with her dying plants, even though he had no idea what he was doing. Elena promised to let Sophie teach her about science projects and to never, ever make garlic bread without supervision. They both promised to show up, to be honest, to choose each other even when it was hard. Sophie cried, which started a chain reaction that ended with half the wedding guests wiping their eyes. "You're supposed to be happy," Logan told his daughter during the reception. "I am happy. These are happy tears." "Since when do you know about happy tears?" "Since forever. I'm 9 now. I know things." "When did you turn 9? "Last month. You threw me a party. There was a cake. You're getting old, Dad. Your memory is going." Elena laughed, pulling Sophie into a hug. "Your dad's memory is fine. He's just overwhelmed by how lucky he is." That's a nice way of saying he cries at commercials now. "I do not cry at commercials. You cried at the one with the dog and the soldier. That was a very emotional commercial. They danced badly because none of them were coordinated, and ate cake that Sophie insisted wasn't as good as the one from her birthday, but was acceptable. Marcus gave a speech that started awkward and ended genuine, about second chances and learning to listen and being grateful his daughter had found someone who saw her worth. Christopher was serving an 8-year sentence in federal prison. The money had been recovered, the company had stabilized, and Marcus had started a foundation to help whistleblowers who exposed corporate fraud. Elena consulted for them sometimes, using her experience to help others who faced what she'd faced. But mostly she ran the art center, taught kids to paint, and came home every night to a house that was too small and had bad plumbing and was full of love. Logan's garage thrived. Word had spread about the mechanic who'd stood up to billionaires and won, and while Logan found the attention embarrassing, he couldn't argue with the business it brought. He'd expanded, hired 4 mechanics now, and finally fixed every deferred maintenance issue, including his truck's transmission. Sophie's volcano project had become legendary at school. She was already planning next year's science fair entry, something involving renewable energy and robotics that Logan was certain would either win first place or burn down the gymnasium. Possibly both. On their first anniversary, Logan and Elena stood in the garage late at night, surrounded by Sophie's murals and the tools of Logan's trade and the smell of oil and paint mixed together. "Happy anniversary," Elena said. "Happy anniversary. 1 year down, 50 more to go? At least 50, maybe 60 if we're lucky." She kissed him, and Logan wrapped his arms around his wife, still strange to think after years of being a widower, and thought about how much had changed since that rainy night when a stranger's car broke down outside his garage. He'd helped her because that's what you did when someone needed help. He'd fallen for her because she ate terrible food and loved his daughter and saw him as more than his circumstances. He'd married her because she made him believe in second chances and new beginnings, and the possibility that broken hearts could heal if you gave them permission to try. The rain started outside because this was Seattle, and the rain always started eventually. But inside the garage it was warm and dry, and full of evidence that sometimes the best things in life came from the worst moments. That sometimes you had to lose everything to find what actually mattered. That sometimes a broken car and a stranger in the rain could change everything. Logan had spent years fixing broken things. Engines and transmissions and lives held together with determination and duct tape and the stubborn refusal to quit. But Elena hadn't needed fixing. Neither had he. They just needed someone to remind them that broken didn't mean worthless, that scars were proof of survival, not failure, that you could build something beautiful from damaged parts if you were willing to put in the work. Outside, Seattle slept and dreamed and planned for tomorrow. Inside the garage, Logan and Elena held each other and listened to the rain and knew that whatever came next, they'd face it together. That was the lesson Logan would have told anyone who asked, though no one ever did. That life wasn't about avoiding damage or pretending brokenness didn't exist. It was about accepting that everyone carried scars, everyone had lost something, everyone was doing their best with whatever pieces they had left. The trick was finding someone whose broken pieces fit with yours. Someone who looked at your damage and didn't see something to fix, but something to love anyway. Logan had found that in a woman with a broken car and a designer coat, she didn't care about ruining. Elena had found it in a mechanic who made terrible breakfast and raised a daughter who understood that family wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up. And Sophie, wise beyond her years, had found something too. She'd found proof that her father could smile again. That loss didn't have to be permanent, that her mother's death wasn't the end of their family's story, just the end of one chapter. The most valuable thing Logan ever repaired was his own broken heart. But he didn't do it alone. He did it with a woman who saw his scars and loved him anyway. With a daughter who refused to let him forget how to be happy. With a father-in-law who learned to apologize. With a community that rallied around honesty instead of status. He did it by accepting help when he needed it, by admitting that strength sometimes looked like vulnerability, by understanding that you didn't have to carry everything alone. That was what made it worth telling. Not because it was perfect. It wasn't. Not because it was easy. It was anything but because it was real. Because it proved that ordinary people dealing with extraordinary pain could still find extraordinary joy if they were brave enough to try. The garage would stay open for another 30 years. The art center would help thousands of kids discover their creativity. Sophie would grow up to be an engineer who built things instead of just fixing them, carrying forward both her parents' legacies in her own way. And Logan and Elena would grow old together in that too-small house with bad plumbing, arguing about whose turn it was to do dishes, making terrible pancakes, and reminding each other every single day that the best repairs were the ones you didn't do alone. Because that's what love was, in the end. Not fixing each other, but standing beside each other while you both did the work of healing. Not saving each other, but choosing each other every day, even when it was hard.
Especially when it was hard. The rain kept falling on Seattle, washing the streets clean, and inside a small garage filled with art and tools and evidence of lives rebuilt, two people who'd learned to put broken things back together held each other and proved that sometimes the most beautiful things were the ones assembled from pieces that everyone else had given up on.